Okie dokie. Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today on our live webinar, Living and Working in Qatar. Today, we're going to be looking at residency, relocation, and responsibilities. You know, if you're looking at moving staff or as an individual, and what that process looks like, a bit of a roadmap to incorporation, as well as some kind of relocation tips and tricks from our guest speakers. So my name is Bianca Beck. I'm the Middle East Marketing Manager for the Sovereign Group. We are joined by some fantastic speakers today. Just a couple of house rules. The session is being recorded. There is possibility for Q&A. So the Q&A section you can find at the top of the screen. We're happy to answer any questions at the end. And this will be available for you to watch after the session concludes. So I'll share the meeting link around with everybody who attends today. And yeah, if you just have any questions, feel free to pop them into that section. So I'm really pleased to introduce our speakers today. So from the Sovereign PPG side, we have Faraz Ahmed, who is our HR consultant across the Middle East. Our very own Hussein Hachem, who is our business development manager based in our Doha office in Qatar. And then from Gerson's Relocation, our lovely guest speakers today are Rula Qatarising, who is business development manager, and Holly Shirley, who is Global Relocation Executive. So we've got two different kind of teams coming together today to give you the full Qatar experience from the corporate side, but also from the relocation lifestyle and kind of setting yourself up to live in the location. So I thought we'd start with a very quick video, which just summarizes the kind of development of Qatar over the last couple of years. And it's actually presented by our Qatar Managing Director, Neil Wilson. So we'll just watch this briefly and then get right into it.
Qatar is an absolute monarchy. The GDP per capita is one of the highest in the world at $68,600. The country is about 7 times smaller than the UAE and 186 times smaller than Saudi Arabia. And the central sector of
So that is a really nice segue into our first speaker today. So I'm going to pass over to Hussein.
Yeah, thank you, Bianca. Hi, good day, everyone. Thank you for attending this webinar. So my name is Hussein Hashim, and alongside with my colleague Mindy, we are the business consultants at Sovereign Qatar office. So my part, I'll be walking you through the company setup journey in Qatar in general, from the initial consultation stage to the ending up with the visa processing for the manager and employees. To be honest, this process can take like maybe 1 hour or more to cover in detail, but I'll keep it as clear and simple as possible. So to start with, the consultation part. So with our reliable experience in Qatar market and the expertise in assisting the SMEs, we help business successfully enter and develop in Qatar dynamic business environment. So we typically start with free consultation involving our business developers, development managers to understand your scope of services, the required business activity. We discuss, we identify if there is any necessary approvals, and we develop a comprehensive incorporation roadmap tailored as per your needs, as per the investors' needs. So yeah, moving forward. So once we agree on all setup details, and then we proceed with submitting the key documents for approvals. Typically, the key documents for approvals are the pre-approval for 100% foreign-owned LLC. This process typically takes like 3 to 7 days. Then the submission require extra details, technical details such as the targeted market, the business scope, the estimated financials for the first 3 years. All these are like could be arranged in a business plan. Yet, if the investor or the client doesn't have a proper business plan, we can assist them in putting all these in an application and submit it for the pre-approval. So this is step 2, which is getting the pre-approvals for the 100% foreign-owned LLC. Moving forward, step 3. So usually we have like legal preparation for all the related documents. So we prepare for the let's say if the setup was for individuals, we prepare the power of attorney, we do the translation for the police clearance, and we prepare the application as we discussed before. While if the client was like a corporate, so it will be like a subsidiary, there are additional documents, legal documents to prepare, such as board resolution, power of attorney, alongside with the passport copies of the shareholders. We prepare all these, let's say, legal documents in order to be ready to submit the application and to get the licenses moving forward. Yeah. Step 4, thank you for assisting, Jack. So step 4 makes the official start, let's say, of the incorporation process. So it begins with the reservation of the trade name. So, there is like a trade name reservation. Then we follow on this by preparing and drafting the articles of association needed for the company. Then we sign these articles of association in front of the notary in the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. We prepare all required documents that we just discussed, board resolution, power of attorney, passport copies, everything. So once these documents are submitted and articles are signed by the shareholders, the commercial registration will be issued, the CR. In some jurisdiction, they call it certificate of incorporation. So the CR will be issued at this particular step. So at the 4th step, the process, the real work began, and we issue the first license, one of 3, which is commercial registration CR. Thank you, Bianca. Moving forward, so after the CR, the next step is to issue the license, the trade license for the company. So there are like 2 key points it's worth to mention and consider actually in this step. So the first point is to secure the premises. So the premises typically can be an office, can be a showroom, location, factory, shop, whatsoever mentioned in the sub-location required for the business activity. The second important part is to appoint an authorized signatory, general manager. So because it's mandatory to have a general manager holding Qatari ID in Qatar with the residency permit, and in order to be authorized signatory to facilitate the process, because we cannot issue the trade license from Ministry of Municipality unless we have someone with full authority, authorized signatory on the license having Qatari ID. It's mandatory in Qatar. That's why the investor has like one of two options. It's either the investor hires someone in Qatar having the residency permit by default to be his general manager, like by hiring process. Or if they don't have someone to hire and they just want to come to Qatar and discover the market, then do the hiring process. We are playing the interim authorized signatory role, interim GM, we call it interim GM, for a short period, maybe 1 up to 2, 3 months, just to facilitate the whole process and to issue the license, the trade license, and it's related to the other third license that we will discuss right away. Step 6. Yeah, step 6. So this is the final step, let's say, in the whole incorporation process. So we issue the computer card and we issue the labor quota and we issue the visas. So after issuance, so the first license is the CR again. The second one is the trade license. The third one is the computer card or establishment card. This card will allow the company to register on the Ministry of Labor portal, then will allow the company again to issue the labor quota for the investors, for the shareholders, for the employees. So to get the labor quota and do the visa processing. So after we issue the establishment card, the computer card, we open the company file at the Ministry of Labor. We request for labor quota. At the very first time, we can get a quota up to 10 employees, but we have to mention their gender, names, nationality. These are mandatory. And we can get up to 10 employees, 10 visas at the first time, which is good. Then, speaking about visas, so if you can open this, we have 3 types of visas: work visas, family visas, and multi-entry visa. So work visa typically is the visa related to the employment. So once I want like to hire someone, I issue this quota as we discussed and issue the work visa from the Ministry of Interior. I send it to the employee. The employee will come to Qatar and we will do the process. In short, the process is as following typically. So the employee enters Qatar using the visa that we issued, which is work visa. We do the medical report, we do the biometric, fingerprint, eye print, then we pay for the residency permit, then we issue the Qatari ID, the QID. This is the first, which is the typical type, which is the employment type, the most familiar one. The second type is family visas. So, and we have like 2 types of family visas. The family visa, the family visit visa, so which is granted usually by invitation. Let's say that I'm based in Qatar. I want to invite my cousin, let's say, or a sister-in-law, mother-in-law. So this is the visit visa. Visit visa usually can take from visit visa. Usually it's granted by invitation and it's valid from 1 month up to 6 months. But it's not a residency permit. It's granted by invitation. Again, this is the first type of family visa. The second type of family visa is the visa that is granted by a sponsor. For instance, let's say that I went to Qatar using this work visa and I did my sponsorship, my Qatari ID, my residency permit, and I want to sponsor my family, my dependents, my wife, my kids. This is the second type of family visa, which is granted by a sponsor. I will be sponsoring them. So it enables the dependents to have residency permits in Qatar, like wife, kids, as we discussed. So to apply, just small hint, because it happened with me when I first came to Qatar, to apply, there are like some rules to apply for visa for dependents. We have to have degree, BA degree. This is mandatory. The marriage certificate should be notarized and attested. And we have to have minimum salary of 10,000 Qatar Riyal. These 3 are mandatories because I faced the same experience. Yeah, if you have all these 3, so you can sponsor your dependent using this family visa. The third type of visa is multi-entry visa. So this is like a really specific type of visa related to specific type of entities, because we have the LLC and we have the other type of legal entities called foreign branch that serves a particular project or contract that are signed with governmental body. Not very familiar, specific type. So these type of entities have the privilege to take short-term visa for their technical workers or for their maintenance team, for instance, because they usually sign contracts with governmental bodies. They do, let's say, maintenance or some technical projects for the governmental premises. So that's why they ask for small permits. So that's why we have something called multi-entry visa. So it's a short-term visa between 3 to 6 months. We can renew it, of course. And as I told you, usually given to employees of companies who have been awarded a project from the government. So the whole business roadmap outlines the incorporation process, if you have noticed, from the initial consultation through up to the visa processing part. So the entire process typically take, let's say, 3 or 4 weeks, estimated time frame, up to issue the computer card. Then we have additional 10 days to complete the visa. So 3 to 4 weeks up to issue the computer card, which is the last license, the third license. Then additional 10 days, as we discussed, though, to issue the visa. The employee will come to Qatar. We will do the biometrics fingerprint, and we issue the Qatari ID for them. This is in short. So thank you again for your time and attention. I'm happy to answer your questions, if any.
Great, thank you, Hussein. I'm going to hand over now to Rula and Holly, who are going to take us through a little bit now that you actually have set up in Qatar, and you're thinking of either hiring staff on the ground or bringing staff in because of their expertise, or you want someone to sit in general manager positions, or those typically management positions, how you might be able to facilitate a smoother transition.
Thanks, Bianca. Hi, everyone, and thank you to the Sovereign Group for inviting us to today's session. It's great to be here. I'm Rula, and I head up the business development team at Gerson Relocation. My role really is to work with companies and HR teams to make sure relocations are smooth, not just for the business, but for the employees and their families too. Moving internationally can be overwhelming, so our job is to make it as simple and supported as possible. And it's not always just about one person moving on their own. Sometimes we support entire families relocating. Other times we handle group moves where several employees or even a whole team relocate together. Those moves can be quite different. Instead of just supporting one individual, we're managing a mix of people, a mix of personal needs, family requirements, and company priorities. We recently supported a client relocating employees to the UAE to open up a new office. With a mix of singles and families, we coordinated housing across different neighborhoods, arranged school placements, and timed household deliveries to ensure a smooth arrival. By managing it as one coordinated project, every employee settled quickly and the company had its new team up and running without delay. So today we're going to be focusing specifically on relocating to Qatar. So we'll share some practical insights and some tips from what we see day to day, things that really make a difference for HR and for employees on the ground. I'm here with my colleague Holly, who heads up our destination services team. Holly and her team are the ones that really roll up their sleeves and make sure employees and their families can get settled smoothly into their new life. So Holly, maybe we can start off with you. Over to you.
Thanks, Rula. Hi, everyone. It's lovely to be here today. So when we think about destination support, the focus really is to help people feel at home in their new surroundings as quickly as possible. And this all starts before they even get on the plane. So the first step for us would be to organise a pre-arrival call with both the employee and their families if they wish to join. And the call is really so they can ask any questions that they have, and we'll cover various things from housing, schools, cultural differences, and even what day-to-day living in Qatar looks like. Once the employee arrives, we'll organise an orientation tour, and we'll be showing them around different neighbourhoods as well as local amenities. So everything from supermarkets to healthcare facilities, and they'll also get to see a few example properties during the tour as well. For families, schooling is obviously the most important factor mostly, and what we'll do is we'll guide them through the school system as well as arrange visits to schools and support them through the application process as well. Housing is obviously another big one as well. So we can help employees to understand the market and shortlist properties as well, and we'll help them to negotiate the lease and review the tenancy, the lease as well, so that they can move in with confidence. We recently supported an employee who was moving to Qatar with his wife and family. And in this case, the family needed a more tailored support around childcare and also settling in. We helped the family to find a furnished property, so they didn't have to ship many of their items, just a few personal belongings and baby items. We helped the family to secure a nursery and also assisted with spousal support as well, which just made all the difference in helping them to feel settled quickly. As Rula mentioned earlier, individuals, it's not always just about individuals or families. With group moves, the key here is consistency and also coordination. For instance, if several employees relocate together, we'll make the process feel fair and structured for each of them, whether that's arranging joint orientation tours or securing housing in similar areas. At the same time, we'll still tailor support to each household as well, so that no one feels like they're just part of a batch process. So yes, destination services is all about flexibility. No two moves will ever look the same, and our job is to adapt to the family or group to see what they require the most. Back to you, Rula.
Thank you, Holly. Sorry, I had my mic on there. Just going to talk about household goods shipping and logistics now. So that was a great example. While some families or groups don't move a lot of belongings, for others, this one is one of the biggest worries. The question always gets asked, what happens to my things? That's a big, big question. From HR's point of view, it's also an area that can create a lot of stress if things don't go smoothly. So we take that whole process off everyone's shoulders. Here's how we support employees and groups. We start with a pre-move consultation to understand what's being shipped, any special care items, and what's allowed under Qatari customs. Then we create a tailored moving plan, whether it's one family, one employee, or multiple employers, we move them all together. We handle all the packing, the transport, the tracking. If there are any urgent items like baby essentials, work equipment, we'll often send those by air, while the rest of it goes by sea. And throughout that, both HR and the employee have visibility of where everything is. We also manage the customs clearance because that's where the delay can happen. And if it's not handled properly, you find that that is where everyone starts panicking. So when the belongings arrive, we deliver, unpack, clear away packing materials, and employees can focus on settling in rather than worrying about managing boxes and unpacking everything. And if housing isn't ready yet, we can arrange storage. For group moves, we can also coordinate multiple shipments, so they arrive in sync with each family or employee's move-in date. So really, our logistics support isn't just about moving boxes, it's about reassurance, making sure whether it's an individual or a family or a group of employees, their belongings are safe, compliant, and ready for them when they move in. Thank you.
That's a really
Over to
nice
you.
transition then into our next speaker, Faraz, who actually talks more about the employee side of things and things that you need to consider. So we've looked at so far, you know, incorporating and securing the visas for your employees. We've moved into how to make that transition for them as smooth as possible from A to Z, you know, from their origin country to moving to Qatar. And now Faraz is going to talk a little bit more about kind of labor law and the things on the ground.
Thank you, Bianca, and hi everyone. I know we left the most put you to sleep conversation topic to the very end, but I'll try and keep it short and I'll try and keep it sweet. Qatar is like we saw in the presentation video, it's considerably smaller than the GCC counterparts of the UAE or Bahrain or even Saudi Arabia. But Qatar has historically had one of the most strictest labour regulations and employment regulations across the GCC. So any employer that's looking at establishing their entity here or migrating the staff, there's a fair few considerations that you have to keep in mind. Now, the first thing, obviously, is that Qatar's labour laws are regulated by a set of regulations. The labour law is the law number 14 of 2004. But with Qatar, as is with other GCC countries, you have mainland and you have free zones, right? So mainland will have its own set of regulations, and then free zones, like the Qatar Financial Centre, for example, that has its own set of regulations that governs employment regulations and labour disputes, etc. Now, for one of the first main considerations is that whether you're onshore or whether you operate out of QFC, all employees in Qatar need to have an employment contract in place. Now, these need to be a written employment contract, not really a verbal or a presumed contract. It needs to be signed by both parties, and there is a specific level of detail that needs to be involved in those contracts. The kind of next thing as well is that in Qatar, unlike other GCC countries, there is a statutory minimum wage, especially when you have an employee that is sponsor independent, right? So as really as Holly were talking about, moving families over, as an employer, you need to pay attention to what threshold salaries you're keeping for your employees on a monthly basis for them to actually be able to bring their families over. For anyone that needs to sponsor a family member in Qatar, they need to have at least a minimum of 10,000 Qatari riyals. That's the monthly salary threshold. The other thing as well in Qatar is working hours. Again, it's a labour law that's fairly strict, fairly rigid, and they're very controlled about the hours of work and overtime. In Qatar, the maximum hours of work in a weekly basis is about 48 hours of work, roughly around 8 hours a day. And Qatar takes overtime very, very seriously, right? So if there's any work that's done past the working hours, you're, as an employer, you're expected to pay a surplus to that employee for the days worked. If, for example, you're asking your employees to work between specific hours, I think that 9 p.m. to 3 in the morning, you have to pay an even higher surplus amount. So there's those considerations to pay into mind as well. The other thing as well in Qatar, kind of unlike the Western and European counterparts, is the GCC has a very favourable kind of annual leave structure. So your paid time off, or PTO, is going to be very different to what you get in the UK or the US or European countries compared to what you have in the GCC. And the labour law mandates a minimum amount that you present to employees. Now, it's slightly confusing because annual leave entitlement can vary based on years of service or length of service. So, for example, anyone that's worked between 1 to 5 years is entitled to 21 calendar days. However, anyone that's over 5 years of service gets about 28 calendar days. So it does vary and it does change. And it goes very similar for different types of leave. So if we look at sick leave, you get about 16 weeks, which is broken down into, you have a set amount of weeks for full pay, a set amount of leaves at half pay, etc. So there are some variable factors here. And the biggest kind of one thing that a lot of companies I've noticed have overlooked is the entitlement of an end of service gratuity. Obviously, being expatriates in a foreign country, we don't naturally get a pension system that secures our kind of retirement fund or that goes against our retirement fund. But what Qatar and what the broader GCC does very well is implement an end of service gratuity, which is somewhat of a payout to the employees for their years of service. So that's covering the kind of considerations on employment. Now, the next step in Qatar that you as an employer should really be paying attention to is nationalisation, right? If we could go back one screen, please, Bianca, please. No, sorry, go back to nationalisation. Thank you. Yeah. So Qatar has recently introduced their nationalisation laws, especially for the private sector. They're a little bit behind the kind of bandwagon. Obviously, Saudi Arabia's done it with Saudiization. The UAE's got it with Emiratisation. But unlike the UAE and Saudi, where Emiratisation and Saudiization is fairly established and very well regulated, Qatarisation is still very much in its infancy stages, right? The law has really only come into effect over the last couple of months. And there's a lot of ambiguity around who this applies to, what the quota percentages are that are going to be applied to. Are there going to be specific rules that need to be reserved for Qatari nationals? This is something that the Ministry of Labour will release slowly as they build more into the law at the moment. We know that there are certain industries that do have something out in law. For example, if you are from the banking sector, you do need to meet a minimum 20% of your skilled staff being Qatari nationals or a child of a Qatari mother. But as we go on, it's important for you guys, anyone that's planning on relocating to Qatar, to keep proactive, right? We've seen firsthand how reactive thinking in the UAE left a lot of companies being fined for Emiratisation. So it makes sense for you to remain proactive rather than just wait to see if you have a requirement. How you can do that is, firstly, you can review your current hiring practices to see how you can prioritize Qatari nationals to come into your workforce. You can implement different policies internally, whether it's through listing job vacancies on the ministry portals, whether it's working with recruitment agencies that specialize in Qatari nationals. You can set up a system that reports to the ministry as well, how many employees you have at any given time, the demographic breakdown, etc. And if you're someone that is going to be over 50 employees, sorry, then you also need to start having mandatory training materials for Qatari nationals when they do come on board. Qatar also has the social insurance law, which is their pensions, right? So how I mentioned about the expatriates getting the end of service gratuity, nationals of Qatar, as well as nationals of other GCC countries, are entitled to a pension. The pension in Qatar is the General Retirement and Social Insurance Authority. They regulate the kind of contributions coming in. So as an employer, if you're then hiring a Qatari national, part of your obligation to meet the Qatarisation quotas and the Qatarisation targets is to be making monthly contributions towards the Qatari Nationals Retirement Fund. How this works is that each Qatari employee will have a set percentage of contribution that the employer needs to make from their salary, and then a set percentage that the employee will make, and then that pools into a retirement fund that at the end of their retirement or at the end of their kind of term of employment would kick in. So that's one of the main things around Qatarisation.
Yeah, and just to add to Faraz's points there is that obviously if you, for the purpose of the listeners on this webinar, is that if you're looking at setting up in Qatar and you're looking at planning for your employees, this is obviously something that you need to take into consideration, but it puts you at a good advantage point to start thinking about these things now, because you will naturally have a mixture of, foreign nationals that move over to Qatar, whether you help transport them over with, the help of like Gersons with Ruler and Holly, or, you're also looking at the local workforce that's available to you, which is a mixture of Qatari nationals, but also skilled labor that have come on into the country off of their own terms, looking for job opportunities. So I think, to summarize Faraz's point on this is, look at your workforce as a whole picture.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, lots of things to think about there in terms of considerations to be made about moving to Qatar. Obviously, whether it's meeting immigration requirements or if it's visa sponsorships, work permits. So as a company, there's a lot to cover, right? Whether it's compliance from what Hussein was talking about making sure that the right visas in place, that the establishment card is ready for you to be able to process visas, process work permits, etc. It's also then very important for you as a company to have policies and agreements around relocation in place into your work. The reason being that with relocation, obviously Rula and Holly would probably be the best people to vouch for this. It can be chaotic, it can be stressful for HR, it can be stressful for the employees and their families. So having policies that dictate how that process works from start to finish, having an agreement that outlines everything that the employee would be entitled to as part of that relocation package, those are always going to make things a lot easier for you as a HR, as an employer, and then it's also going to make life incredibly easy for the people that are essentially moving their life from one country to another. Also, very important is the kind of budgeting and support side, right? It's important for you as an employer to have the budget for relocation and ensure that there's enough cash flow in your business that the cost for relocation is not necessarily eating into your operational costs, right? You can do this by first understanding what the goals of the relocation are. Is there a necessity to move this employee from country A to country B, or would it be easier to hire locally? You can also have post-relocation support. So whether you are understanding whether an employee, you need to support them with their housing, or was this something that they would do? Having that kind of strategy in place and that budget in mind, it's definitely going to be a very cost-saving strategy for you, because you're not overspending, but then also you're not making it extremely difficult on the employees.
Yeah, and I think a balance between, the role that Faraz plays and in consulting from HR point of view, so from the business's point of view, and then, going back to Gerson's and relocation, and then they can help you set that budget and understand, realistically what the costs are going to look like. So you have the company side that is setting the expectations. This is the amount that we have to move somebody over. Then the relocation experts, Ruler and Holly, can then kind of build a plan bespokely for you, which leads nicely into the final support services section.
Holly, over to you.
Thank you. So let's talk about settling in, because as you know, relocation, it's not just about moving people's belongings, it is helping people feel part of their new community. We can connect employees and their families to expat groups and local clubs as well, and local events, so that they can start building networks quickly. And then, of course, there's all the admin that we can also assist with. So things like tenancy registration, setting up utilities and health insurance too, as well as opening bank accounts and also setting up mobile phones too. For group moves, we can often create a shared onboarding process where employees can go through some of these steps together. This not only makes things a little bit more efficient, but it also helps build those peer support networks from the beginning as well, which I think are really valuable and important from the beginning. We'll take the practical things off the employees' plates to make things more simpler, so they can focus on their work and their family life as well. And so they're not thinking, how do I set up the internet here? to you, Rula.
Thanks, Holly. Expense management, big question. Relocation expenses can often become complicated without a clear process in place. So that's why many organizations now use a centralized system that makes it easier for everyone involved. For employees, it provides one straightforward place to submit and track expenses with clear guidance and what is reimbursable. This reduces confusion and gives them confidence that everything is being managed correctly. For HR and mobility teams, having all the expenses captured in one platform means they're properly documented and easily accessible for reporting and planning. The result is a smooth experience for employees and greater clarity and control for the business, minimizing back and forth questions and keeping everything in order. In short, a clear expense management system takes away the guesswork, ensures compliance, and allows both employees and employers to focus on the relocation itself rather than the paperwork. And there is a lot of paperwork. This sort of goes hand in hand with budgeting, right? So we always recommend setting a realistic budget at the very beginning based on the employee's needs, the company policy, and the Qatar market. We then track against that budget throughout the move, so HR has full visibility and can make adjustments early instead of being hit with surprises at the end. And again, whether that's one person, a family, or a group move, having that clarity up front saves a lot of headaches later. Before we finish, I just wanted to share a few quick tips we've found that can make a real difference when relocating employees. One of the most important things is to start early. And that's a lot of mistakes. People, they leave it too late. Start early, and as housing and school places can get snapped up quickly, and if you leave things too late, you're never gonna find anywhere. It also helps to keep everything coordinated. Having one main point of contact avoids confusion and makes the whole process run more smoothly. Clear communication is key. That is very important. Clear communication. Employees should always know what to expect and when, so there are no surprises along the way. We've also seen how valuable it is to encourage employees and their families to connect with the local community, as this makes a big difference in how they quickly settle in. They're in a foreign country, they don't know what to do, they don't know where to go. Getting them involved from the start makes such a big difference. And finally, it's vital to keep an eye on costs, just going back to, the management part of the costing bit. Regular tracking and visibility, that means that you can avoid those last minute surprises for both the company and the employee. At the end of the day, a successful relocation isn't just about getting someone from A to B, it's about making sure they arrive ready to settle in, focus on their role, and can enjoy life in their new home. For HR, it's more about knowing everything is under control, right? From start to finish, they know they're in safe hands, their employees are in safe hands, and everything's under control. It's been a pleasure sharing these insights with you today. And if there's anything that, we haven't answered today, or that you need more there's more questions involved, please reach out to both Holly and myself. But I just really wanted to touch, I know we've been talking about corporate individuals here. We also support privates, right? Private individuals moving from one country to another. It's not always about the corporates, it's about the private individuals. And I always say, no question is a silly question. Ask the question and we'll get the answers for you. If we don't know the answers there and then, we'll go away and get the answers for you. So we're here to support corporates, privates, families, groups, everybody. So if there's nothing, like I said, anything we haven't covered today, please feel free to reach out to us and connect with us directly, and we'll be more than happy to support you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rula. I think that's what you said there is really interesting, because especially like for my colleagues and myself here in the Middle East, we're not from this region. We moved here as expats on our own terms to seek employment opportunities and, kind of better our opportunities, really. And firstly, having the kind of support that you guys offer would have been incredibly beneficial, and definitely, sped up a lot of those processes. Faraz and I have worked with a partner in the past who has created a schools guide because of the amount of school options that you have in the region is so overwhelming. So that's just one aspect, you know, the kind of stuff that you covered in terms of where to live, where do you shop, where am I going to find people that I can connect with and make that place feel like home to me. I'm sure my colleagues can kind of touch on that as well. But I think the point that you made there about, you know, corporates don't necessarily mean moving 50 employees. A lot of our clients are people that are, you know, wanting to move from the UK to Qatar, and they might just start with 1 or 2 people on the ground. Hussein, you can definitely vouch for this, but you know, that role, and that this is not just applying to Qatar, but across the board, the role of the general manager in company setups is hugely important. Knowing who that's going to be, and typically somebody does want to bring somebody in from the parent company who has that experience, who knows the business. But there's, you know, the interim GM solution that Hussein was talking about is that it's not always possible to that you have the person that you want to hire already on the ground. So, you know, making that general manager's experience as smooth as possible with stuff like this, you know, helping them find places to stay, even if it's temporarily, then helping them move their families across, etc., is really, really useful.
Exactly. See, Bianca, just to highlight this point, this is very important point because most of the investors are not aware that they have to have general manager authorized on ground. And actually, to be honest, we have developed this service because like 3-4 years we didn't have such service. So the investor was like, it was very tough for the investors to hire someone that they don't know if they can trust at the very first early stage, to give them the authority to be authorized to sign on their behalf. It's like very hectic and very, it's something like very risky for the new businesses. That's why we've developed this service, and we've put in place since 3-4 years. And investors are feeling more comfortable actually to give the, let's say, the experienced firm in the incorporation this service for that, so that they can trust them and they are aware that they have the experience and they are in the safe hands, let's say. It's very interesting topic.
It marries quite well because then, you know, then they also have the time to choose the right individual from their parent company who's based in the UK, US, wherever they are, the time to move into the region, you know, smoothly without the stress of, okay, I want to get my business up and running. But I also want to make sure that, you know, my general manager or whoever it is, the management position on the ground is taken care of.
Yeah, I would also add to that, on our website, you can download country profiles. So, you know, that we find that really, really does help our clients and the employees. If there's anything they specifically need to know about the country they're moving to, they can download the company profile, country profile, I should say, and get all the information they need on schooling. They can pick what they want: your schooling, housing, you know, is it moving services, is it destination services, and we'll give as much information on that. And it's quite interesting to have, just to understand the culture and what it's like to live in that country. So that you know, I would advise people to download that as and when they can.
Super useful. We actually did get 2 questions, so I'm just going to move on to those here. So this is one for Hussein actually to answer. So Mike has just posted in the comments section that he's a certified public accountant. Can he set up an accountancy firm in Qatar without a Qatari sponsor? I guess the topic of 100% foreign ownership.
Interesting question. See, Qatar has made its business environment maybe more accessible for foreign investors. You know, they introduced 100% foreign-owned LLC, and this obviously allowed the ownership without the need of local partner. But yet, certain activities remain restricted. So your profession, let's say accounting firms, still require Qatari sponsor. And actually, in such type of professional services such as accounting, additionally, the Qatari sponsor also should have the accounting degree. So if I want to answer your question straightforward, you cannot open accounting firm 100% owned, foreign owned. You need Qatari sponsor, Actually, if I want to make things easier for you as an investor, and you are in the maybe initial stage, checking Qatar, checking about the available activities and this stuff, so I can maybe refer you to a portal called Single Window. It's like a portal linked to the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, and you can check the activity. In this activity, or the Ministry of Commerce website itself. In this activity, in this portal, you can check the activities, and they have like a small page below the activity. It says that it's allowed for foreigners, need Qatari sponsor, allowed for GCC nationals only. If this would help.
Yeah, so it's in answer to Mike's question. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need a Qatar national. Something like our company, Sovereign PPG, can act as that percentage holder for you. So that's part of our corporate sponsorship platform that we offer. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to, work with an individual and try and find that individual, because our company is essentially Qatari owned. We can act as that percentage for you, Mike. I don't want to butcher this person's name, but I'm assuming a client of your guys at Gerson's was talking about moving as a social worker from the UK to Qatar. I guess one of the additional questions to that would be, are you moving with a job already secured, or are you just moving for residency purposes and then hoping to find work on the ground? But I think one of the things that we definitely can answer is, Hussein, maybe you can answer this as well. In terms of sponsoring family members, so the family visas that you talked us through, are they required to live with their sponsor?
Come again, what was the question?
Sorry, if you sponsor a wife, child, do they have to live at the same residential address as you?
No, not necessarily. So this residency permit allow this person, the wife, the dependents, to be a resident in Qatar, but not necessarily in a specific place. No, it's not related. Yeah, not related.
And then they ask a question as well about finding employment. While we're not a recruitment firm, we do have recruitment partners. So you're welcome to reach out to Faraz, and he can potentially put you in touch with somebody. Does anybody else have any other questions?
I just want to highlight something, Bianca, if you allow me, only 1 minute, because the first question was from some accountant. He said that he want to open. So my answer was related to because we have 3 authorities in Qatar. We have the mainland authority through Ministry of Commerce. We have QFC, Qatar Financial Center, and we have QFZ. So my answer was about the Ministry of Commerce, which is mainland. Yet we have other authority, which is Qatar Financial Center. They are like experienced in these professional services, and they have developed a new, very let's say, organized group for the professional services that can be owned 100% without Qatari sponsor, because this is like semi offshore authority. So if he is interested to incorporate in Qatar, but not in mainland, we can offer Qatar Financial Center, which is an authority that allow him to incorporate accounting firm on 100% without Qatari sponsor. Just to make things clear, if in mainland need Qatari sponsor, if in Qatar Financial Center, which is a separate authority and entity, yes, they do license accounting services. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, the recording will be shared, so don't worry about that. I'll share that after we conclude. And then there's just one more question in here as well, which is for you to answer. Well, a couple are coming through now. Corporate tax rates in the free zones in Qatar versus mainland, Hussein.
Yeah, so mainland, the corporate tax in mainland is 10%. And in Qatar, we have 3 authorities, as I've mentioned: mainland, Qatar Financial Center, Qatar Free Zone. Mainland, the corporate tax is 10%. Qatar Financial Center as well, 10%. Qatar Free Zone is a tax-free jurisdiction with holiday for 20 years. After 20 years of incorporation, they will be taxed 10%. But if we are comparing now, the only available authority with 0 tax is Qatar Free Zone as of now. But the others are typically 10% corporate tax.
Okay, thank you very much. And then someone's asking about age restrictions. Can you set up a trading company in Qatar if you're over the age of 60?
Yes, because see the general definition, it says that any shareholder can hold any shares in any place whatsoever his age was. So if the question was to incorporate, it's not related to age. But if the question was to get visa, yes, there is like restrictions. So after 60 years, it will be very complicated, to be honest. We did it once out of, let's say, 20 applications that went failed. So it's really complicated after the age of 60s. Yes, this is true.
Okay, a couple other questions. Sorry, just going back to that original one about moving with his wife to Qatar. He's actually setting up the business through us. His question was more about, if his wife then wants to work, as a sponsored individual through him, is it possible for her? I think that's the side of the question that we can help with.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, it's possible. Yeah.
Okay. QFC can have a foreign director and shareholders?
Yeah.
Depending on the activity, of course, right?
No, all the activities, foreign shareholders. Yes, 100%. Yeah, without any Qatari involvement.
Okay, there we go. Ian's just asking there, does QFC have a fintech regulatory sandbox and access to local investors? If so, what are the contact details? We might have to provide that to you offline, but how does QFC work in the fintech space, Hussein? Is there much?
Yeah, they developed some groups with activities related to fintech. So if there is like specific question, they support the fintech licenses. They've developed a specific group. So if there's like some specifications, we can research what is the exact requirement, and we can. But if to answer directly, yes, they have specific group for fintech businesses, for fintech activities. Yes.
Yeah, I think it might be more useful for Hussein to hear about your requirements in a bit more detail to be able to answer things to, to the level that might be useful to you, Ian. So feel free to email Hussein directly there. That's hhatcham@sovereigngroup.com. Fabulous, guys. Thank you all for being such wonderful speakers, firstly, and then thank you for everybody else who attended the session. We're hoping to do a lot more with Gerstens going forward for all of our other jurisdictions. But if you're looking at a place to live in Qatar, Hussein, you live there. Give us a quick little anecdote about your experience, moving to Qatar firstly and living there now.
Yeah, see, to be honest, it was very tough at when I first came to Qatar. But once as Rola said, and as once you know the available groups, maybe once you get some access to some activities, you get to know your neighbors, the whole neighborhood. Yeah, things will change, to be honest. Yeah, and for me myself, after I get married, the second year of my stay in Qatar, things were like changed big time. To be 360 degrees, to be honest. Yeah, it will be tough at the very first time, but if you have the connections, if you have if you have developed like a strategy to visit some places, to have like some connections, some groups, some friends, it's really nice place to live. Quiet, nice, peaceful, very secure, as other GCC, of course.
Yeah, I think as expats living in the Middle East, we can all adhere to that. And I'm sure you experience the same things, helping people relocate across the globe. Typically, 1 year to properly settle in, but having those kinds of tools and things to help you settle in, at the beginning would really help you smooth that process out. Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Speak to you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.